This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, Bo Cook from Loan Market, BTZD, the official apparel partner of the Paracave Podcast, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is the tipping podcast that I have been doing lately, and it is round 24 in the NRL, and it is also round number 4 in the NRLW as well. So let's just quickly start off with the NRLW, and as I said, it is round 24, and we see the Dragons take on the Raiders in the first game of the weekend down in Wollongong. Should be a good game down there. As I said about the men's side, the Dragons play a lot better down in Canberra, but the Raiders, they've been one of the form teams at the moment in this competition, having won their last 2 games in this competition. Last week against the West Tigers, who were top of the table last week, 28-22, and also previous to that, defeating the Roosters 24-14. So some great wins there by the Raiders. Both of those games were down in Canberra as well at their home ground. The Dragons, they've only had the one win this year, and that was against the Parramatta Eels, 38 points to 12. So against a struggling team this year. So they haven't really gelled this year, the Dragons. And I think maybe they've had a few player turnovers, but I think maybe this might be the week that the Dragons get their second win of the season against the Raiders. Although you'd have to say the Raiders, they are playing some great footy. So, look, it's going to be a good game, a close game, I think. But I think the Dragons might just get this one at home in front of their home fans down there in Wollongong. Now, the second game of the weekend sees the Cowboys take on the West Tigers. So two new teams in the competition. Now, this game is at Totally Workwear Stadium in Brisbane, so neither a home game for either team. So we've seen a few of those now these days in the NRLW especially. So this one, Totally Workwear Stadium in Brisbane, Saturday 12:50pm. And look, you'd have to think the Tigers, they had that loss last week against the Raiders. The Cowboys, they had that great win against the Newcastle Knights, the defending premiers, but then they got smacked by the Broncos 40 points to 12 last week. The Broncos really came back to form in that game, in this competition, registering their first win of the season, and what a win it was. But the Cowboys, look, they will want to get back into that winner's circle. It is up in Queensland. The Tigers, though, they've been one of the form teams of this season. As I said, were on top of the table at the start of this year after 2 consecutive wins. But I think the Tigers will get this win against the Cowboys. I think the Tigers team just has a little bit more experience in their side. They've been gelling well. They've got some their captain Kezi Apps has been scoring tries the last couple of weekends. Emily Curtin at halfback, she's been leading the team around, and although they've got a big out there at fullback, Botil very well, she's out for the Tigers, so a big out there for them. but I think the Tigers will just get this win against the Cowboys. So I'm going to tip the Tigers in that one. The next game in the competition sees the Brisbane Broncos take on the Parramatta Eels. A double-header at Totally Workwear Stadium in Brisbane. The sixth-place Broncos got their first win of the season last week against the Cowboys in pretty convincing style. 40 points to 12, as I just said there. And these two teams, they've played a few times now, but the Eels, they're struggling a bit at the moment this year. They haven't registered a win. They've had some pretty high scores against them. Their last win was last year in the semi-finals, 24-10 against the Roosters. So a long time ago. Having said that, the Broncos, their last win was last weekend against the Cowboys, but before that, you'd have to go back to last year. So this is the first time that they've met this season. The last time these two teams met, it was 28 points to 16 in favour of the Eels, which was a much better result for them, obviously. But a few big ins for the Parramatta Eels. Elsie Albert and Rachel Pearson come into the side and will make their Parramatta Eels debut. Rachel Pearson is co-captain, obviously with Kennedy Cherrington having been suspended tonight for 4 matches due to a dangerous tackle. So Rachel Pearson takes that captaincy role off Kennedy, and she comes into halfback, and Elsie Albert starts in at prop. So a couple of big ins for Parramatta. As I said, a big out. Kennedy Cherrington is out for, unfortunately, 4 weeks. But look, a player who was playing against their old club, Gail Broughton, in the 5'8" role there for the Brisbane Broncos. She would love to have a good big game against Parramatta. Obviously, players love playing against their old teams. But, and look, I think now that the Broncos have got their first win of the season last week, I think they may continue that on. And unfortunately for me, being a Parramatta fan, beat the Parramatta Eels. But you never know. Sometimes when the chips are down, they could get the win. So it'd be great to see Rachel and Elsie back in the blue and gold for the first time. But I just think the class of the Broncos might just get this win against the Eels, unfortunately. And that would mean that the Eels haven't won a game yet all season. But fingers crossed, I'm hoping they can do it. I hope they can get off the duck egg. But we'll just have to wait and see. The next game of the NRLW season sees the Sharks take on the Roosters. So some very talented players in this game. The star-studded Roosters side with names like Corbin Baxter, Jessica Sergis, Isabel Kelly, just Taryn Aiken, Millie Boyle, Keely Davis, just to name a few, Olivia Koenig. It's a pretty star-studded side. The Roosters team, probably one of the favourites to win the competition. In the Cronulla side, you've got Kiana Takarangi, the sister of Brad, Tiana Penatani, Emma Tonagato, Taylor Preston. So there's a couple of names there as well that are pretty big in the NRLW world. But a new team, the Sharks, they're still trying to find their feet in this competition. They've had just the one win this year in the competition, and that was back in the first round against the Raiders. That was at Shark Park. They've had a couple of close games just recently against the Tigers, 10-0 going down there, and 10-8 going down to the Titans. So the Roosters, well, they're travelling not too bad. They're sitting in third spot on the ladder at the moment, having a 30-0 win against the Dragons last week. Pretty comprehensive win there, and a win against the Broncos in that first round of the competition. So they're sitting in third spot at the moment, so they're on the improve. So I think the Roosters will get that win in that game. The final game in the NRLW this week, in round 4, sees the Knights take on the Titans at McDonald Jones Stadium. So the Newcastle Knights women's team gets a home game at McDonald Jones Stadium, which is great news. They're sitting in second spot now. They've had 2 wins for the season. They've only lost the 1 game. The Titans, though, they are high flying. They're on top of the ladder, undefeated at the moment. 3 wins in a row. So great effort there for for the Gold Coast Titans. Obviously, they had the 10-8 win against the Sharks, a late-minute try to get them the victory there. The Golden Point field goal, 17-16 against the Broncos, and the win against the Cowboys in the first round of the competition. So they're playing some great footy at the moment to sit on top of the ladder, undefeated. Great to see the Gold Coast there. Up the top, Ivana Politi is leading the Dally M's in the NRLW. So that clash against Tamika Upton, that'll be a great one to watch for sure. Shanice Parker versus Jamie Chapman in the centres, that'll be a great battle. Jessie Southwell as well, leading the Newcastle Knights around the park. We all know how good she is. Yasmin Clydesdale versus Charlie Bent, that'll be a great tussle there. Hannah Southwell, captain, returns into the lock position. So the 2 Southwell sisters, a big inclusion there for the Newcastle Knights. Great to see that. And yeah, so this is going to be a great game. Top of the table clash between the top 2 teams in the competition at the moment. So yeah, look, I'm just going to tip Newcastle just at home in this one. Although the Titans, you don't know, they're playing some good footy, but I'm going to tip the Newcastle Knights in this one at home. So my tips for the NRLW this week are the Dragons, the Tigers, the Broncos, the Roosters, and the Titans. Okay, moving on to the NRL now, and it's back to the 8 games a week with the North Queensland Cowboys having a bye this weekend in the competition, and every game from now on is very crucial to teams positioning on the ladder, and they are all in the finals race at the moment. So a bye for the Cowboys sees them move up to 28 points, which without games being played at the moment sees them sit in the top 8. So a break for them, but 2 points for them, so crucial for them. Now, as I said, there's going to be some crucial games in this round. At this time of year, we've got the Sea Eagles up against the Panthers. The Sea Eagles looking to stay in that top 8 hunt. The Panthers in that minor premiership hunt. The Sharks, they are trying to stay in the top 8. They had a good win against the Rabbitohs last week, and they are sitting on 28 points in 6th position, so they want to continue that form. The Broncos and the Eels, the Broncos, they'll be trying to go for that minor premiership, but the Eels, they're sitting outside the 8 at the moment, only just on for and against on 26 points. They want to keep getting wins to stay in that top 8. They still do have a bye in hand, but wins are what they are after. The Rabbitohs and the Dragons, well, the Rabbitohs, they had that loss against the Sharks last week, so they want to get back into that winner's circle. They are in 8th position at the moment, but they'll want to stay in that top 8. The Warriors up against the West Tigers. Well, the Tigers are nowhere near the top 8, but the Warriors, they're sitting in 3rd position, so they'll want to secure a top 3, even a top 2 position. The Roosters and the Dolphins. The Roosters, they've got a slim chance of making the 8. Very slim. They just need to win all their games. Storm and Raiders. So 4th, 1st, 5th. That'll be an interesting game there. Again, the tussle for that top 4. We all know how important that top 4 is. and the Knights and the Bulldogs. Probably the Knights have got back into the top 8 now, so great for them. They had a great win against the Dolphins last week, so they're sitting in 7th position. So they'll just want to keep. They've got the momentum at the moment. They'll just want to keep on going on. So let's have a look at the games and go through my tips. Thursday night at 4 Points Park sees the Sea Eagles take on the Panthers. Look, it's going to be a tough ask for the Sea Eagles to get over this Penrith Panthers side. The Panthers got one of the best defensive records in the competition, and Manly are going to find it hard to score points against them. It's going to be a difficult ask. The Panthers, they are solid favourites going into this game. First versus 11th. The last time these two teams played, it was a Dylan Edwards masterclass. He scored 4 tries against the Manly Sea Eagles, and Panthers went on to win that game 44 points to 12 at Bluebet Stadium. But this team, they have currently 5 wins on the trot, so they're going for 6 in a row. They are really priming themselves for September football, which is what they want. They want September football. They want it to come around, and they want to go that three-peat. Will it be the Sea Eagles, who had a great opportunity last week to get a victory over the Roosters to stay in that top 8 race? They'd actually be in 8th position at the moment if they did get that win against the Roosters, but a crucial chance there. They lost that one, 26 points to 16. So, look, this one's back at 4 Points Park. We know that the Manly Sea Eagles do play better football there at Manly, but I think that the Panthers, they will just be too good. They will just they'll beat the Manly Sea Eagles. So I'm going to tip the Panthers in this one, as I'm sure pretty much most people will. The first game on Friday night, 6 p.m, sees the Sharks take on the Titans at PointsBet Stadium in Sydney. 6th versus 13th. Look, the Titans, they had that little period there where they were looking pretty dangerous. You were thinking maybe they might have made the top 8. They sit on 22 points now. Very hard for them. I don't think they can make the 8 this year. So they're going to probably play a bit of nuisance value to the rest of the competition with who they play. So a couple of ins. Ronaldo Mulatalo for the Sharks. But Tom Hazelton is out due to the concussion protocols, I believe, from that tackle from George Burgess. And so Ronaldo returns and Hazelton is out. Pretty fair sort of side still, though. Braden Trindle at 5'8", and Nico Hines at half seemed to sort of work last week. Connor Tracy retains his spot at fullback with William Kennedy out with a hamstring, I think it is. So he stays in that fullback position. So they looked pretty good last week, the Sharks, against the Rabbitohs over there in Perth. So they want to keep on continuing on that form. The Gold Coast Titans, as I said, they'll just want to put some pride into the jersey. At the moment, I don't think they can make the top 8, so they want to put some pride back into the jersey. They're playing in front of new incoming coach Des Hasler. He'll be watching what is happening at the moment, so they will be playing for that jersey for next year. Mo Fotuaika is out, suspended for a high shot last week. Sam Verrills is out probably for the rest of the season with shoulder injury, so he'll be out for the rest of the season. Big Tino Fasua Malawi comes back into the side after serving his suspension, and Jamin Jolliffe returns to take up that front row position that Mo Fotuaika leaves vacant due to suspension. Look, it's a tough ask for the Gold Coast Titans, but I think the Sharks will get this win. They'll get a bit of confidence out of last week's win, and they will want to stay in that top 8. So, Sharkies for me. The second game on the Friday night sees the Brisbane Broncos take on the Parramatta Eels. 8 p.m. at the Gabba in Brisbane. So Adam Reynolds returns and Jordan Ricky returns into the second row position as well. So a couple of big ins for the Brisbane Broncos there. Jesse Arthurs is out due to concussion protocols. Dean Mariner takes his spot on the wing, but a virtual unchanged side. Now this side is marching on towards September, somewhere they haven't been for a couple of years. They are challenging the Panthers. Everyone thinks they are the only ones that can challenge the Panthers for this year's competition, so they want to get that minor premiership. So this will be a big game. Parramatta, they got the win last week against the St George Illawarra Dragons, 26 points to 20. A few changes to their side this week. The debutant Arthur Miller-Stephen is out. Bailey Simonson goes onto the wing. Dejan Arce goes into the centre position. And what else have we got here? We got Ryan Madison on the interchange bench and Brendan Hands on the interchange bench as well. So a few changes there from Coach Brad Arthur. Brisbane and Parramatta games, they always are pretty entertaining games. Last time these two teams played, it was in Darwin, where the Broncos got the win 26 points to 16. It was a Adam Reynolds masterclass. His kicking game and passing game just certainly led the troops around there, and Parramatta, they were not in the game. And that was the game that RCG copped that groin injury, which saw him out for a long time in that game. A couple of controversial moments there that came out of that game. I think Payne Haas was suspended. Ezra Mam had a week off due to suspension as well. So this game will be interesting. It's going to be a tough ask up there at the Gabba in Brisbane for Parramatta. They need this win. They need to stay in touch with that top 8. I'll be up there in Brisbane, so if you're listening to the podcast, I'll be up there in Brisbane, so come and say g'day. Get a picture, get a photo, chat some footy, chat some Parramatta, chat about the game. So come and say hello. And look, this game... Look, the heart says Parramatta, the head says Brisbane. I'm going to go Parramatta in a 1-12 game there. I think they can do it. They got a pretty good record against Brisbane. This is a big game, big test for them. I think they can get the win 1-12. I'm not too sure what the score will be, but I'm going to tip Parramatta in that one. Rabbitohs and Dragons, this one at Barlow Park in Cairns. The Rabbitohs continue their 5-game tour around the country. Last week it was Perth. They've played in Tamworth. Now it's in Cairns against the Dragons, who fought a lot against Parramatta, but went down, some would say controversially, with Clint Gutherson with the stripping in the tackle, which the Dragons was ruled a no try. So some would say that was controversial, but that's the way it was. But they put in a good show against the Eels. Unfortunately, though, Jack Bird and Zach Lomax are out due to injuries. So they've got a few changes there in their side. The Rabbitohs, Tom Burgess is out. I said George Burgess before. Apologise for that. It was Tom Burgess. Getting my Burgess brothers mixed up. And the news today, actually, that Sam Burgess has signed on as Warrington head coach from 2024. So congratulations to him. But it was Tom Burgess who did the high shot, not George. George is not playing anymore in the NRL, so Tom is suspended, I think, for 3 weeks for that high shot on Tom Hazelton. So, look, the Rabbitohs, they haven't been playing the footy that they probably would have wanted to be playing. They just seem to they're hanging in there. They're on 26 points. They're in 8th position. They still have a bye to come. They would want to get a win and get a good score some points just to get that confidence back. Latrell Mitchell's been back for a couple of weeks now, and his combination with Cody Walker, that's probably what the South Sydney Rabbitohs want is for their combination to fire again against the Dragons. The last time these two sides met, though, it was the Dragons who got the win, 36-30. That was at Cogra Jubilee Oval, so the Dragons, they will know that they can do this. They know that they can beat the Rabbitohs, so maybe potentially a danger game for the Rabbitohs, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I think the Rabbitohs will bounce back after their loss against the Sharks last week, and they'll get this win. The West Tigers take on the Warriors over there in New Zealand. So this is in Hamilton, New Zealand. The Tigers have decided to take a home game back to New Zealand. So congratulations to the Tigers for doing that nice gesture there of taking one of their home games back to New Zealand. Probably giving back to New Zealand a little bit more what they did, especially when they went through the COVID period where they were over in Australia for 18 months. So good stuff there, Tigers. Expecting another massive crowd there in New Zealand. The New Zealand public are really getting behind this New Zealand side, so it's great to see. The Tigers, well, they haven't had a season at all that they would love to have. They would have loved to have had a better season. They have had a season that they would rather forget. It now looks like they will probably go back-to-back wooden spoons. So they are 4 points adrift the Dragons, who are in 16 points. So a tough, terrible season for the Tigers. They lose Luke Brooks this year. At the end of this year, he goes to Manly. So one that they would want to forget. They just are playing for pride again. In this jersey, they'll want to try and get this win against the Warriors, who, look, they've been playing some fantastic footy, the Warriors. They've been one of the most entertaining sides to watch play. 4 straight wins. Parramatta, Sharks, Raiders, Titans, so it's a couple of top 8 sides there. 2 outside the top 8. So they've been playing some really entertaining football, and I think they can all add it to one of the massive big factors is Sean Johnson, just the way he's playing at the moment. So if he continues the way he's playing, this could be anything for the Warriors. This could be a massive, big result. I think the Warriors will get this win 13+ in this game. Roosters and Dolphins. Look, the Roosters can just still maybe make the top 8. They sit on 24 points. They need to win every game. The Dolphins, well, they started off the season really well, having some great wins, but then unfortunately fell away during that origin period. We all thought maybe they might finish around 12th to 14th, so it looks like they're going to finish in about 14th position on the ladder. So, look, it hasn't been a disappointing season, I don't think, for the Dolphins. They probably think it is because they're not in the top 8, but they started off pretty well, as I said, had some good wins, and one of those wins was against the Roosters in round 1 at Suncorp Stadium, their very first game in the NRL, in front of a crowd of 32,000. So the Dolphins can get the win against the Roosters. and especially at the start of this year, I should say, a lot of people did predict the Roosters to win the premiership. So for the Dolphins to get that win in round one was a magnificent effort. Times have changed now, though. The Roosters, they are just hanging on the glimpses of trying to get into that top 8. And they need, as I said before, they need to win every game just to have a chance, potentially, of making that side. Nathan Brown, he is out suspended for his shot on Ben Trbojevic. One inclusion for the Roosters sees Dylan Napa return to the NRL. First time he's played an NRL game since 2021. It's the first time, I think, for the Roosters since 2018, I think. So, good to see Dylan back in the NRL. Ray Stone returns for the Dolphins. It's going to be a tough ask for the Dolphins. This game back at Allianz Stadium in Sydney. So, look, back at the home ground for the Roosters. I think the Roosters will get the win in this game. So I'm going to tip the Roosters. Storm and Raiders. This will be an interesting game, this one. Down at Amy Park. So the Storm back at Amy Park, back to their home after playing their couple of previous games at Marvel Stadium. Now that the Women's World Cup in soccer is coming to an end, a close, there is not as many pool games there now, so teams are getting back to their home grounds, I should say. So the Storm are back in Melbourne, and the Roosters are back at Allianz this week anyway. And the only one that I can think of at the moment is the Broncos play their last game at the Gabba this weekend, as the Matildas play on Saturday against... I'm not too sure who that one is against. On Saturday at Suncorp Stadium. So the Broncos, they'll play their last game at the Gabba, and then they'll move back to Suncorp Stadium. But this game's at Amy Park. Storm versus Raiders, 4th versus 5th. Very interesting game, this one. Jerome Hughes comes back. Xavier Coates is back. Tarek Sims is back. So a relatively full strength side for the Storm. Still no Justin Olam. Ryan Pappenhausen came back last week in Queensland Cup, and by all reports had a pretty good game, which is great to see, especially with the amount of time he has spent out on the sidelines. And I think it was this game last year against the Raiders where he picked up that knee injury. So great to see Ryan back playing rugby league. The Raiders, they got a pretty good record down in Melbourne. The last time they played down there was last year, finals week 1. It was the Raiders who got the win 28-20 and actually knocked out the Melbourne Storm out of the competition last year. So the Melbourne Storm, they won't want that to happen twice in a row. But this Canberra side, they've been playing some relatively good footy this year. They had a good win against the Tigers. They would be disappointed they let in 18 points. The Melbourne Storm went down to the Panthers 26 points to 20. So a very evenly matched game, this one, at the moment. I think the only thing that's leading me to tip the Storm is that it is in Melbourne at Amy Park. I think this could almost be like a semi-final feel, but I think the Storm will get the win in this one. The next game, in the last game of the round, that was the first game on the Sunday, Storm and Raiders. The last game to round out the round sees the Newcastle Knights host the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, who coming off the bye from last weekend. So Bradman Best is unfortunately out for the Newcastle Knights, so a bit of a blow for them. Otherwise, they're relatively full strength. I said that obviously the Panthers, the Broncos, they're form sides of the competition at the moment. The Warriors as well, but this Newcastle Knights side, well, they're gunning for 6 in a row. They had a good win last week against the Dolphins, only just. They've beaten the Raiders, the Storm. They've had some good wins. They are very tough at home as well. I think even with Bradman Best out, it's going to be hard for the Bulldogs to get this win. I'm going to go the Newcastle Knights 13 plus. There you go, 13 plus in this game. So my tips for this round, and please, if you want to follow them, go right ahead. They've got 6 out of 8 last week, so not a bad effort. Only missed out on the Rabbitohs and one other one. I can't remember which one that was. I think it might have been the Dolphins game. I think I tipped the Dolphins, but yeah, so 6 out of 8, not bad. But this week I'm going to go the Panthers, the Sharks, the Eels, the Rabbitohs, the Warriors, the Roosters, the Storm, and the Newcastle Knights. So some pretty interesting games there this week. As I said, all have a bearing on the top 8. Let's see if your team gets up. I hope your team gets up. Unless it is, of course, the Brisbane Broncos, because I want the Parramatta Eels to win. And just a reminder, I'll be up there in Brisbane, so come and say good day, get a picture, have a chat, whatever. I'll be up there in Brisbane, can't wait. I haven't been to the Gabba for a game as such. I've been there for a tour, but that was way back before the reconfiguration. So first time I've been to the new Gabba and for a game. I'm pretty excited to be there and getting there, so can't wait for Friday night and wait for the game as well. So that's my tips for the weekend. Let me know if you're going to follow them, or if you've got some other thoughts on these games, and if you're going to tip otherwise. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and enjoy your footy this weekend.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.